Link TV, connecting you to the world. Link TV is viewer supported. Watch more at linktv.org.
Link TV presents Mosaic World News from the Middle East. Here are today's top stories.
Israel deports Gaza-bound flotilla activists. Egypt opens Rafah border. And Egypt's Brotherhood loses vote bid. Mosaic World News from the Middle East begins now.
The Israeli Foreign Ministry has decided to evacuate all the families of Israeli diplomats in Ankara and Istanbul, claiming that they are no longer safe.
However, the diplomats were not asked to go back to Tel Aviv.
More details in the report by Elias Karram from Palestine.
Israel bowed under international pressure. The last of the detainees who were aboard the Freedom Flotilla will leave the Be'er al-Saba detention center in the Negev desert without having been tried. However, this Israeli measure has not stopped the deterioration of relations between Israel and Turkey. The Israeli Foreign Ministry started evacuating the families of Israeli diplomats in Turkey, and air traffic between Tel Aviv and Israelis' favorite Turkish tourist destinations has stopped.
The deterioration of Turkish-Israeli relations started a long time ago. We saw the Turkish policies, their criticism and insults, as well as their negative positions toward Israel. This is regrettable, but as I've said before, it was Turkey who took that decision.
What is your reaction?
Of course, we are not satisfied with this decision.
Some Israelis have become more vocal in demanding the resignation of Defense Minister Ehud Barak and are holding him responsible for the bloody results of the attack on the ship. Some ministers accuse Barak of unilaterally taking the decision to launch the attack before informing Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu of the details. Other ministers protested that the details were not discussed with the ministers in the 7-member inner cabinet, who are specialized in dealing with sensitive issues which may have led to alternatives to the military attack. Even some members of Ehud Barak's Labour Party demanded his resignation.
This operation failed and caused a great deal of political failure. Therefore, Barak must pay the price. He must tell the Israeli public that he failed and that he is going home.
Meanwhile, the military court in Ashkelon extended the detention of the chairman of the High Follow-Up Committee for Arab Citizens of Israel, Mohammed Zaidan, Sheikh Mohammed Ra'id Saleh, Sheikh Hamad Abu Dabas, as well as Ms. Lubna Masarwa of the Free Gaza movement for participating in the Gaza Freedom Flotilla. Knesset members have become more vocal in demanding that Hanin Zolbi, a member of the Israeli Knesset, be expelled from the Knesset and accused her of treason.
She cares about Hamas and Al-Qaeda. It is not reasonable to accept that an Israeli Knesset member was actually on board a ship full of terrorists. Her place is not in the Knesset. She should be in prison.
The blood that was shed in Gaza has placed Israel in the same category as pirates and states that sponsor terrorism due to its recklessness with international law. However, Israel has paid a heavy price as well. It has brought the world's attention to the need to end the siege on Gaza.
Organizers of the aid flotilla have announced their intention to breach Israel's blockade on Gaza yet again. A spokeswoman for the so-called Free Gaza movement said that two cargo ships are already en route to challenge Israel's denial of access to the Gaza Strip. IDF Operations Commander Colonel Itzik Turjaman told the Knesset Foreign Affairs and Defense Committee today that the next flotilla will be stopped as well. IBA's Eli Wogelenter has more in this look at the much-criticized operation.
The option of using the naval SEALs for taking over the Marmara ship en route to Gaza was chosen after other options were ruled out, including the possibility of stopping the flotilla via other means. So said Colonel Itzik Turjaman, head of the General Staff's Operations Division, to the Knesset Foreign Affairs and Defense Committee today. Turjaman told the MKs that it was impossible to stop the Marmara ship due to its size, strength, and speed, and that the option of disabling its motors was ruled out because the time required for hauling the ship to shore would have been too long. While questions continue to be asked today on how the IDF operation was planned and executed, a lot of misinformation has and is being reported in the media. Many of the details have now become clearer following the release of numerous videos on what took place over the last 48 hours. This one shows how the passengers on board viciously attacked the commandos as they landed on the ship. Regarding claims by the so-called peace activists who announced that there would be no violence, this story, filed by Al Jazeera from aboard the ship a day bore the clash, indicates that there was a pre-battle atmosphere on board the flotilla, including chants of a well-known Islamic battle cry invoking the killing and defeat of Jews in battle.
على الرغم من التهديدات الإسرائيلية وظهور بعض العقبات غير المتوقعة إلا أن وصول السفن إلى نقطة الالتقاء استعدادا للإبحار نحو غزة ألهب مشاعر وحماسة المشاركين. فوسط الأناشيد التي تذكر بالانتفاضة الفلسطينية كان المشاركون يعبرون عن شوقهم للوصول إلى غزة.
الآن نحن إما إحدى الحسنيين، إما الشهادة وإما الوصول إلى غزة.
While the activists presented themselves strictly as humanitarians, the Free Gaza Flotilla itself was organized by the IHH, a radical Islamist organization based in Turkey. Numerous reports have linked the IHH to terrorist organizations across the globe, including Al-Qaeda, Hamas, and the Muslim Brotherhood. Proof that the attack on the Israeli soldiers was premeditated can be seen in this video, showing how the ship was carrying a huge stockpile of weapons prepared in advance. These include smoke bombs, slingshots and stones, iron pipes, wooden clubs, knives, baseball bats, metal pipe wrenches, gas masks, and Molotov cocktails. And when the Israeli commandos approached the flotilla, a message was broadcast offering to land the vessels in Ashdod and to transfer the aid through the existing land crossings. That offer was rejected outright.
The Israeli government supports delivery of humanitarian supplies to the civilian population in the Gaza Strip and invites you to enter the Ashdod port. Delivery of the supplies in accordance with the authorities' regulations will be through the formal land crossings and under your observation, after which you can return to your home ports aboard the vessels on which you arrived.
The head of the Knesset Foreign Affairs and Defense Committee, Tzachi Hanegbi, said at the start of the committee's meeting today that there are many questions on the operational and intelligence sphere, and we will insist that inquiries are held, lessons are learned, and answers are provided. Eli Wogelanter, IBA News.
Before departing Canada, Prime Minister Netanyahu delivered a strong defense of the Israeli operation on the high seas.
I just had a conversation with President Obama, and I told him that I would have to go back to Israel. We both agreed that we'd have very close consultations right now and try to reschedule our meeting to the earliest date possible. I think both Prime Minister Harper and President Obama understand that Israel has a great security problem, and I want to put that into context. We told the flotilla of ships, we said, you can take all your cargo, put it in our port of Ashdod, we'll just ferret out if there are any war materials, and the rest will go through. We succeeded doing this peacefully with 5 of the 6 ships. The 6th ship, the largest, which had hundreds of people on it, not only did not cooperate in this effort peacefully, they deliberately attacked the first soldiers who came on the ship. They were mobbed, they were clubbed, they were beaten, stabbed. There was even a report of gunfire. And our soldiers had to defend themselves, defend their lives, or they would have been killed. And regrettably, in this exchange, at least 10 people died. We regret this loss of life. We regret any of the violence that was there. I would like to wish speedy recovery to the wounded, including 4 of our own soldiers.
وجهتهم كانت قطاع غزة لكن الرحال حطت بهم في الأردن فمع ساعات الصباح.
They were destined to go to Gaza, but they ended up in Jordan instead. In the early hours of the morning, 126 international activists arrived in Jordan. Israel deported them after interrogating them for many hours. They were originally detained during Monday's attack that was launched by Israeli special forces at dawn against the Gaza Freedom Flotilla. The objective of the flotilla was to break the siege and transport humanitarian aid to Gaza. The international activists received an official and public welcome. The crowd expressed joy that these activists survived. They gave the first accounts of people being subjected to violence and mistreatment by Israeli soldiers. Our reporter Salwa Sawaka reports from Amman.
حطت رحال 126 ناشطا يمثلون 13.
126 activists representing 13 different Arab and foreign nations were sent to Jordan. After a long delay, Arab activists, politicians, and professionals that were aboard the Freedom Flotilla finally arrived in Jordan in high spirits, even if exhaustion was clearly visible on their faces. They have endless stories about the hours that almost changed their lives.
قصص لا تنتهي عن ساعات كان يمكن أن تغير مجرى حياتهم.
In the middle of our morning prayer, they attacked the ship from everywhere, from above, from below, and calmly started killing the passengers.
The helicopters were surrounding us on the ship, and some men got killed even in the bathroom. Some dead bodies fell from the ship into the ocean.
When will the silence end? If governments are silent, people have to take action.
Their goal was to end the Israeli blockade on Gaza. They were well prepared to sail to Gaza, but instead of going to the besieged Gaza, the activists were surrounded and were detained in Israeli prisons. Activists said they were insulted, treated poorly, and questioned for a long time before Israel decided to let them go to Jordan.
The Turks pointed water hoses on them. The only weapon they had was water.
What were we carrying? We were not carrying any weapons or bombs. We only had medicine and food for a people that has been oppressed and enclosed for 4 years.
Jordan initiated diplomatic actions to secure the release of the detainees. The Jordanian embassy took political action in Israel to rush the release of the activists. It is also exerting major efforts to transport the injured to Jordan in the coming days. In a show of solidarity, when the freedom activists crossed the border into Jordan, they were welcomed by a large public and official crowd. Their plan was to go to Gaza to end the blockade, but the Israeli attack on the Freedom Flotilla sent them on a detour to Jordan. Although their efforts did not reach Gaza, their voices resonated far and wide. Salwa Salwaka, Dubai TV, Amman.
The Turkish parliament issued a declaration condemning the Israeli attack on the Freedom Flotilla and called on the government to review Turkey's diplomatic and economic ties with Israel. In addition, it adopted a firm position in relation to the Israeli government, but confirmed the clear distinction between the Israeli government and the Israeli people. To discuss the Turkish parliament's decision to review Turkish-Israeli relations, our BBC correspondent in Istanbul, Abdel Nasser Singhi, joins us. Abdel Nasser, can this call to review economic and diplomatic ties be elevated to cutting the ties, or does that have support inside the Turkish parliament?
طبعا البرلمان أو لجنة حقوق الإنسان في البرلمان أصدر هذا البيان.
Of course, the Parliament, or the Human Rights Committee in the Parliament, issued this declaration after debate took place around some of the declaration's terms.
نواب الحزب الحاكم حزب العدالة والتنمية الحاكم رفضوا وجود بعض الفقرات.
The ministers of the ruling Justice and Development Party refused the inclusion of some terms, like the one that called for a review of military and diplomatic ties.
لكن يبدو أنهم توصلوا إلى اتفاق ثم تم التوقيع.
However, it seems that they have reached an agreement and the declaration was signed. Of course, it is supported by the government, but it has not taken such a decision.
لم تتخذ مثل هذا القرار.
Is the government bound by this declaration? I don't think so. Right now, the government, of course.
All right, excuse me, Abdel Nasser. We reported the statements of the head of the government himself, Recep Tayyip Erdogan, and his tone of voice was described as severe. Based on the declaration of the parliament right now and Erdogan's position yesterday, will any action be taken by the government? Or was Erdogan's speech yesterday directed directed only at locals and aimed at reducing the people's anger.
If we consider Erdogan's speech to be only for local consumption and to reduce the people's anger, well, the reasons behind that speech are important. The current government is facing the upcoming parliamentary elections. The people are angry and the people want tangible results. Opposition parties want to take advantage of the current political situation. Today, opposition parties pressured the ruling party to sign the declaration without changing any of the terms. Their aim was to pressure the government and to rush its next steps.
Outside the White House Tuesday afternoon, anger, frustration, and outrage.
Israel does not own America.
Dozens of men and women from various religions and affiliations demonstrated against the deaths of peace activists, killed trying to bring aid to the Gaza Strip.
We're not condoning violence, but the root cause of all the violence and the animosity that has been created between Jews and Muslims is rooted in the existence of the State of Israel.
On Monday, 6 ships known as the Gaza Freedom Flotilla were planning to break the Israeli blockade of Gaza to deliver humanitarian supplies. Activists say Israeli military raided the ships and started firing at the activists. According to Israeli sources, their forces boarded the flotilla and were attacked by activists after declining to change course.
Beaten, stabbed. There was even a report of gunfire. And our soldiers had to defend themselves, defend their lives, or they would have been killed.
At least 9 people on board the ships were killed, dozens more hospitalized. 10 Israeli soldiers were also injured. At the center of this frustration and angst are members of the Islamic community, many of whom have been watching the situation very closely. They've condemned the raid on the flotilla, and many of them are urging the White House for a stronger response.
This is really unprecedented that military forces would land on a civilian vessel and result in the deaths of 9 or more individuals who are doing nothing more than trying to bring humanitarian aid.
The White House says a full investigation is needed before a determination can be made. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu canceled his meeting with President Barack Obama this week, but maintains that troops were defending themselves. Activists outside the White House said the military action was disproportionate.
Because they've hijacked and kidnapped our name, the name of Judaism, and the name of the Jewish people. Of course, we're outraged at the death, the wanton death for no reason.
Joining us from the Rafah crossing is our reporter Hanan Al-Masri. Hanan, it seems that the border crossing is now more crowded at noon.
Yusuf,
if you were to allow me, I would like to say something before answering you. I must mention a different news report. Israel is now returning 5 cargo shipments that were on board the Freedom Flotilla after they were taken to Israel through the Israeli Karam crossing in eastern Rafah city. However, Gaza, and particularly the leaders of the public campaign to end the siege, refused to allow these products in. They say that the Freedom Flotilla was supposed to deliver these products to Gaza. They also say that the international activists were kidnapped and detained, and the 6 ships were hijacked. The Palestinians believe that they can't accept the relief supplies from the Israeli crossing under Israeli terms. The Palestinians set conditions for these relief supplies to enter Gaza. They are demanding that all detainees be released and that the ships also be released. Then the international activists can decide how the relief supplies can enter Gaza. It is their choice whether or not to let these relief supplies enter Gaza through Israeli checkpoints. There are 5 cargo shipments of relief supplies that weigh 10,000 tons, which were carried by the Freedom Flotilla ships and were supposed to enter Gaza through its port. So far, 3 ships have entered the crossing, and 250 individuals were allowed to enter Gaza from Egypt. Only 3 Palestinians have been returned to Gaza. Only specific people are allowed to leave Gaza, such as students, foreigners, different Arab nationals, the sick, and those who have visas from foreign countries. We were surprised that some Palestinians have been trying to leave while only having their Palestinian passports. They say that they are taking a chance, hoping that they will be allowed to go to Egypt, or else they will be returned by Egypt because they are not included in the groups that I just mentioned.
Across 55 polling stations, Egyptians voted for 74 candidates in the elections of the parliament's upper house, known as the Shura Council. 446 candidates from opposition parties are running in the elections, including independents in the Muslim Brotherhood as well as the ruling party. According to some sources, there were violations, forgeries, and shootings in some polling stations.
The battle for the Egyptian Shura Council is being fought in the election booth. Millions of Egyptians from 27 provinces went to the election booth to vote for 27 new members of the parliament's upper house. The ruling party has already won 14 seats and 88 seats remain vacant.
By voting, I fulfill my duty as an Egyptian citizen. Any Egyptian who is over 18 years old must vote so we can have change and have new people.
Of course, I wanted to vote, although I have kids at home and I should not leave them alone. Of course, it is my duty to vote.
Voting is my constitutional right. I have to vote even though my vote may not make a difference. It is my constitutional right. No one can deny me my constitutional right.
146 candidates, mainly independents, as well as candidates from the ruling party and opposition parties, such as the Al-Wafad and Al-Ghad parties, are running in the elections. The Muslim Brotherhood has 11 candidates who are competing in 55 electoral districts. These elections precede those of the parliament's lower house, set to take place at the end of the year, and the presidential elections at the end of the coming year.
There's a big turnout, especially after working hours. The people are aware of the importance of voting. Ordinary citizens know what they want.
Although the elections of the Al-Shura Council did not receive much attention in the past, the recent amendments to the electoral law increased the importance of the role of the Shura Council. This is reflected in the increased number of candidates and the heated competition. Not to mention the new round of detentions and a new episode of confrontations between the government and the Muslim Brotherhood before the upcoming parliamentary elections.
النظام جرب مع الإخوان يعني سياسة الاعتقالات.
The Egyptian regime tried to deter Muslim Brotherhood members from nominating themselves through these arrest campaigns. However, the Muslim Brotherhood rejects these policies. They will not compromise their legal and constitutional right to have candidates in the elections, and they are willing to make sacrifices. As of yesterday, 86 members of the Muslim Brotherhood were arrested.
The Shura Council election is the first step toward political participation ahead of the presidential elections. This election experience will show people if they are going to have transparent elections or if the opposite will take place.
Al-Kouachra is a village in Qatar that will wage its municipal elections in a familial battle for 12 seats in the municipal council. But what distinguishes Al-Kouachra from other Lebanese villages is that it is a Turkish village. My colleague Clara Rajiha reports.
This is not the era of Safar Barlik or the Mutasarrifiyya, nor is it the ancient kingdom of Anatolia. The heroes of this village are not Muhannad and Noor, or Yahya and Lamis, or Furat and Aylul. This is the village of Al-Kouachra that remained from Turkey's era and is located in northern Lebanon. This village is not voting for Erdogan or Gül, but its sky is bright like its future. For 470 years, Al-Kouachra has been a Turkish village in the Lebanese district of Akkar. Time has slowly passed by it. The residents here have kept their ancient Turkish language and speak Arabic as well. They preserve their special traditions, clothes, and even their way of smoking.
Nasasif means how are you? Shalab Yasin means I hope you're well.
We migrated from Turkey and settled here. Everybody started to have children and the village started to grow. We used to have 10 homes built of clay with metal plates on the roof to avoid leaks.
Why do you still wear the same traditional clothes as if you're still living in the Turkish era?
Because people have to maintain their identity, our clothes represent who we are. However, the new generations have started to wear different clothes than the older generation. But for us, we'll continue to wear our traditional clothes. The old-timers, they can barely speak Arabic. But now we can speak both languages.
In Al-Kashra, almost all the houses and cars have Turkish flags, as well as ancient currency from the Ottoman era. In a new trend, all the families now watch Turkish TV series, even though the dialect spoken in Kouachra is from the Ottoman times and is slightly different than the modern Turkish language.
We understand some of the spoken language in the TV series, but others, we don't understand them. Their language is different. It depends on the region where the series is made.
In some areas in Turkey, they speak exactly like we do. For example, we watched a Turkish TV series that was made last year. The filmmaker, Asmar, originally came from Kouachra and is one of the grandchildren of Mustafa Abdullah Abdul, who is the cousin of my father.
In 1985, the Turkish embassy reached an agreement with Al-Kashra and began to financially and morally support the village. The embassy offered the villagers grants for them to study in Turkey and even sent a teacher here to teach them the modern Turkish language. Here sits Haj Kaman Yusuf Abu Sulaiman, 90 years old and surrounded by his grandchildren. He still sings Turkish folk songs that take him back to his childhood and make him cry. As if we traveled hundreds of years back in time, back to the era of Safar Barlik, but without the Ottoman colonization. Modern times have brought the Turks and the Lebanese people together, and here, both the Turkish and Lebanese flags are one. From Al-Kashra village in Akkar, Clara Rajiha, New TV.
The views expressed on Mosaic are from contributing broadcasters, not Link TV or its sponsors. The production of Mosaic is made possible from support of viewers like you. Thank you. Watch Mosaic World News online. Stay up to date with breaking news. Read our blog. Get transcripts of past shows and more at linktv.org/mosaic.
This program is brought to you by Link TV for educational and non-commercial use only. Link TV is the only U.S. network dedicated to global and national news, uncompromising documentaries, and diverse cultural programs, programs which connect you to the world.